Alright guys, welcome to my Scream 6 spoiler talk. This movie definitely needs it. There's a lot of things I want to talk about with this film. And a couple things that I forgot to mention in the original review. So number one, let me just start off right out of the back. I think this movie is definitely a B+. I thought maybe B, but it's definitely probably a B+. But right from the beginning, the opening scene, how could I forget to even talk about it like it did in the review? At first, it seemed really generic. I liked the lead girl who was in it, the Samara Weaving. She's in The Babysitter, Ready or Not, and she was even in Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 1 at the very end, if you remember. So she's been in a lot of horror stuff. She was, once again, pretty fun in this, but she was at opening kill. You knew she was going to die, and it was a pretty generic way they killed her, whatever. And it was just a New York backdrop, and I'm like, okay, this movie's not starting out on a good note. And then the killer's face is revealed. Her killer's face is revealed. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I perked up a little bit. I was interested. And then it continues on. You follow him back. He runs into Tara. He knows Tara and Sam and all them. Apparently, he's just trying to carry on the legacy of the killers of the last movies and finish their film. However, when he gets back into his apartment, him, the killer, the Ghostface killer, is killed by another Ghostface killer. He's actually the real first kill of this movie. And I thought that was pretty good. It was brutal, it was vicious, and this new Ghostface came off as more intimidating. He was killing off the Ghostface of the past, and he was using this new mask, this new method. It was just brutal. A great opening, good start to this new movie. And I really dug it. And then there's a scene immediately after. I alluded to this in my review. And it's with Sam talking to her psychiatrist. And they're talking about boundaries that she puts up. And she finally talks about what had happened in Woodsboro. And she explains what happened to her boyfriend and how she stabbed him, I think, 22 times before slitting his throat. The reaction of the psychiatrist or psychologist, whichever one, I don't know, was very off-putting. I was like, why is he reacting like this? He's never heard this before. He's a psychiatrist or psychologist. He's never heard twisted stuff before. I thought immediately, because this is technically the Scream 2 of this requel series, and who's the killer in Scream 2? Billy's mom. So I immediately thought, what if he was the father of the killer of the last movie? So I'm like, okay, I dig this. So let's see how this goes. But I'm like, it's too early to reveal the killer. So I don't think it's him. I think this is a red herring because he was really on the nose with how disgusted and disturbed he was knowing that his son was killed like that. So I was thinking the motive of this movie was, or at least for him, he was the father of the killer of the last film. And I think that works. I'm like, it makes sense. So she leaves after he threatened to report her to the police for nothing, which is another red flag. And a few scenes later, he is visited by Ghostface and killed and butchered. That was important. It wasn't just there to add a body to the body count. It was there to subvert and forget what the motivation was going to be. You killed off this character, thus he is no longer a suspect. And his motivation, poof, gone. I think that's really neat. And because of that kill, I forgot about the motivation of the killer. That was killed off too, his motivation. So I didn't even think about the father of the last killer being the motivation in this movie, because they did away with it so early on. So I thought that was genius writing, if that's what they intended, and I think so. With that out of the way, I did have an idea as to who the killers were. I had 3 people on my suspect list, 2 main ones, and then a third one that came up shortly after, but then that came to nothing. Number 1 was her boyfriend. I thought her boyfriend could have been the killer. I think it would have been interesting for 2 movies in a row for the boyfriend to be the killer. It might have been too heavy-handed, but I'm like, maybe that's something they would do. And then the next one, because he was pretty big, he's strong, so I thought that he could have pulled that off, being the killer. I didn't think that nerdy kid could have been the killer. I thought he could have been the boyfriend because he was a bigger dude. He moved like a bigger dude. And then the other one was Tara and Sam's mother, because I believe Tara. There was a line in the movie that indicated this, that Tara had cut off her mother after her mother cut off Sam or something to that extent, and they aren't talking because she thinks that Sam should stay away or whatever. And I think that's perfect motivation for a killer, that the mom would want to kill Sam to save her daughter Tara from the trauma that will ensue, and yet she's the one who's causing the terror for both her daughters. So I think that would have been really neat. So those were my two picks for the killers: their mom, who wasn't in the movie at all, kind of similar to Scream 2, and the boyfriend. And then it changed to Kirby, and mostly because Kirby was just a weird, out of place character. I did not like Kirby in this movie. I thought it was super cheesy. She was fine, but like her introduction that she's in the FBI, it was super cheesy, and the music of that swells up when she's revealed to be back. I'm like, I roll. Kind of cheesy and lame. Speaking of another legacy character that didn't work for me, and that was Gale. Gale, I mean, the only legacy character that worked for me was Nev. At least they gave her somewhat of a happy ending, so she doesn't even need to come back. But Gale was, I think, the worst and misused character in the entire film. So you're telling me after 6 films she has had no character development? And she has. I've seen it in other movies in which the Ghostface killer comes back and she's just adamant about catching that Ghostface killer and wanting to kill him. This film, she's just back to being that blood-sucking, selfish reporter that she was in the first film. She wrote a book on it. Really? You're doing that route again? And that little punch thing that she dodges one and gets hit by the other? It was fun, but I'm like, why are they doing this? I thought she evolved past this in some way. I know she still wants to be a reporter, but to be this truly selfish, especially after her ex-husband, Dewey, was murdered in the last film? I don't know. I didn't buy into that at all. And then she was totally misused, and at least I'm like, she was definitely more misused in this film after it was revealed that she lived through her attack. And I understand why. So the reason why so many people were survived in this movie was not because the writers were scared to kill them off. I don't think that was the case at all. So you have the 2 twins that survived that should have died. You had Gale that died or that survived and should have died. And I think there was Tara got stabbed directly in the back. She didn't bat an eye at that. So there was several times in which these characters should have definitely been killed, and yet they weren't. They endured a lot. And I think that was poor writing. But what was genius writing, which it was the execution of that subversion of expectations. So when Mindy, I think her name is given that little monologue about the rules of a franchise now, anything goes in this sequel, requel. Anyone that can be killed, including the legacy characters, they better wash out. But she was also then talking about the subversion of expectations, and that's how you trick the audiences. And how do you trick the audiences is if the norm and cliche is to kill off anyone, you kill off no one. And the core 4, I kind of like that name, survives. Gale survives. Kirby survives after getting shot, seemingly. I don't know. They all survived. So yeah, I wasn't a fan of the characters living. The only one that I was a fan of was Mason or Chad. I thought Chad living was kind of funny because when they pull him out on the structure, I was sure he was dead, and I was kind of fed up to that point with all the characters that did survive. And I saw him, I'm like, oh, really? He survived, but he came out on the structure, and it reminded me of Dewey on that structure, so it was kind of a nice little throwback. I'm like, okay, I'll forgive that one, but I'm not forgiving Mindy's survival, nor am I definitely not forgiving Gale's survival. Gale should have been killed. I don't know what they do with her character from this point. What do you do in the next movie with her? She has not developed since the first movie. You're going to develop her in one last film, and it's going to come off really obvious that you're going to kill her off if you give her such a good redemption arc. I don't like it. I don't know what they're going to do with her. And Kirby, I have no idea what they're going to do with. I don't know what they're going to do with Kirby. I think that she's going to come back because I know they're Ghostface killer. But I think that I don't like how they handled the legacy characters. think this franchise could carry on past the legacy characters. I think they developed this core four very well. One of the core four, or two of them, have to be killed off. And I think either Sam or Tara need to be killed off in the next movie. Just saying. Twins could survive. I'd be okay with that. I don't think Shad should die. I really like Shad in this film. I think he was one of the better characters. In the last movie, I kind of even forgot he was in it. I didn't think he was anything great at all. Like, he was so far in the background for me. This film, he was probably the best of all the characters, in my opinion. Each of the characters were better. That was all great. I think they wrote it well with the subversion of expectations. They wrote it well with red herrings. So I think if they get rid of this subversion of expectations and they go balls to the wall with killing these characters in the next movie, as well as a good reveal of Ghostface that was in this movie as well, I think Scream 7 will be probably, it could be top 2, top 3 Scream movies of all time. The reveal is the detective and his daughter who was killed, seemingly killed in the, I think her name was Quincy? I don't know. Who was killed in the apartment. I guess it was just corn syrup that they poured on her and then threw her out of the room. And then her brother, which was Ethan. I'm so bad with names. The reveal that it was Ethan was like, okay, sure. It was kind of surprising because I didn't think it was going to be him. It was surprising because I didn't think it was going to be the detective, because that motivation for the detective was eliminated early on with the good writing. And his daughter was killed off seemingly early on, and I'm like, okay, it wouldn't make much sense if he killed off his own daughter. Like, I would need that would be a massive leap for me to get past, that he killed his own daughter if he was Ghostface. The fact that it was real that the daughter was still alive, it worked for me because it makes sense for him as a character. And then a crazy, insane fight ensues. The only thing I really didn't like about this was after the son and daughter gets killed, and they're up on this balcony, Sam and the detective, and I swear he has a gun, right? And they run at each other. He runs at her with a gun like this. And they collide into each other and fall off the side of the balcony. What? Yeah, he did have a gun. That's right. Like, why didn't he just sit back and shoot her? Like, that was the dumbest movie of the entire movie. It was the biggest eye roll moment. I didn't know what was going to happen, but they got out of that with stupid bullshit. But yeah, so no, I think this movie was a solid film, pretty much all throughout. I talked about all that I really wanted to talk about. So that's my spoiler talk right there. I would have been okay if Ghostface continued to use that shotgun throughout the rest of the movie. I really would have been. That shotgun was, for some reason, it fit his costume, that shotgun that he was using at the grocery store, and I dug it. But yeah, that's my spoiler talk. If you want to put your thoughts below, that would be great. But I will talk to you guys all next time. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. Farewell.